Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists episode 512. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Hey guys, welcome to a big episode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's our annual top 20 films of insert current year here episode.
Insert previous year.
Previous year, right. So, I screwed it up already.
I don't have 2022 films yet, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got to remake my list real quick.
That'd be great.
I thought something seemed familiar about these movies. It's the exact same order as last year. Yeah, this is one of two kind of end of year episodes that we do every year. This is the first of the end of the year episodes, our top 20 films of 2021. And then next week, we will be doing our annual 2021 hangover episode where we cram as many lists into one podcast episode as is humanly possible. So that's next week. This week, we're just running down our favorite movies that came out in 2021.
Totally.
Welcome, guys. This is the second year we've done it with Kyle.
Yeah, I'm excited to be doing this again.
Kyle, any pressure to, this is your first full year as an official Cinereelists co-host. Was there any pressure to watch way more movies this year than you did the year before or anything like that?
I didn't feel more pressure. I definitely was cramming in this last week.
Oh, really?
Trying to get in as many as I could, but I was
Sure.
probably cramming a year ago this week also for the 2021 episode.
Sure. Definitely. I know Zach did some cramming as well, right?
Yeah. You try to fit them in.
I did too,
Zach-
but I kind of found I got to see most of what I wanted to see. Most years I have this really long list, and this year I don't really have a really long list.
Zach, you told me that there were a bunch of movies that you were halfway through you wanted to try and get done.
Yeah.
How many of those did you were able to get through?
3.
Just today?
Yeah.
So you watched 3 halves of movies.
Yeah. There were ones that, like, for whatever reason, I hadn't seen the last 20 minutes of or something. So I could just burn through them.
Sure.
I'll be curious to know if any of these movies you saw that last 20 minutes, it was like, whoa, I was not expecting that to happen.
No, mostly it was like, okay, that was what there were movies for whatever reason, didn't grip me, right? And so there probably wasn't some big twist at the end that was going to happen. It was more just the story had to play out, and for whatever reason, I couldn't finish them at the time.
So none of these are movies that made your list?
Yeah, correct.
All right.
I'm just imagining that you watched The Last Duel, and then before the duel, you're like, I'm going to stop here. I'll come back to this.
Halfway through the duel, I had to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get to it because this is going to be a long episode. We're talking about potentially, since, we're not allowed to have the same movies on each other's lists, there's going to be 60 completely different movies in this list. I'm hoping you guys, I sent you my list ahead of time and you weeded out the ones I picked. So, before we jump
How many
into
bingos do you think we'll have?
what crossover movies?
Yeah, movies that are on all 3 lists.
Hopefully none, but I think we'll probably have 2 movies that are on.
Oh, I think we'll have
everybody's
more.
Oh, I'm thinking 4 or 5.
Yeah, I was thinking 5.
5. All right.
I bet you there will be 2 bingos between 2 of us in some combination. I don't think we'll have a single 3-way bingo.
Oh, we'll definitely have a 3-way bingo. Maybe not a super bingo, but we'll definitely have bingos.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
I think I'm
mean,
confused as to what a bingo is then.
Okay. I think we will we will all share 4 or 5 movies in our top 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Those are bingos?
Those are bingos.
Okay, those are kind of big. Yes, those are bingos.
Okay.
I think there'll be 2 instances where 2 of us will have the same movie in the same spot.
That's a super bingo.
That's a super bingo. I do not think we will have a triple super bingo where all 3 of us have the same movie in the same spot.
Triple.
Absolutely not.
Shouldn't it just be a super duper bingo?
Yes. I don't know why
I like-
Kyle insists on saying triple super bingo. It's never been that way.
All right, we'll call it a 3-way bingo. Does that make you guys feel better?
No, a super duper bingo is the
Super
official
duper
name,
bingo.
Kyle.
Okay.
We can't mess with tradition. Super duper bingo.
All right, before we jump into it, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. There's a video version of this podcast on Cinereelists. In case you didn't know, go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, and find us there. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Leave us an Apple Podcast review and send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. A bunch of listeners have already sent us their end of year email containing their top 10 to top 20 favorite films of last year, ranked in order. And we are collating those and will continue to collate those until next week's Hangover episode. So if you want to be included in the listener email aggregate, you need to send us an email between now and next Sunday, which I believe is the 16th. Yes. Between now and noon on the 16th, send us an email with your top 10 to top 20 films of 2021, and we will include you in the official Cinereelist listener aggregate favorites list.
Wow.
So do that.
Sounds
Hey guys at cinereelist.com. All right, we're going to jump into our top 20 favorite films of 2021. Who'd like to go first with number 20? Also, just a reminder, 11 through 20, we're going to breeze. And then from 10 to 1, we'll slow down. All right, guys?
Got it.
All right.
All right.
I'll go first.
Kyle's going to go first. Kyle, how many 2021 movies did you watch?
53.
All right.
53.
Nice. This is your favorite 20 out of the 53 2021 movies.
My favorite 20. Yep, exactly.
Perfect.
My number 20 is The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. This is a movie that I did have a lot of expectations for because we've already had Suicide Squad. It was not great. James Gunn made Guardians of the Galaxy from Marvel, which I thought were awesome. And this was all happening in the midst of his somewhat being canceled, but then not really being canceled over some very old tweets over tasteless jokes at best.
Mhm.
So I was expecting a lot to come out of The Suicide Squad. And after watching it, I really enjoyed this movie. It has this kind of pulpy 70s violence feel to it. It has a lot of the same energy and humor that we got with the Guardians movies, but this being R-rated, I think we got more of the true James Gunn, where the jokes were a little darker, the violence was a little heavier, and everything was just a little bit more twisted than anything we could see him get out of Marvel. So I would love to see more James Gunn comic book movies in this vein.
Was that breezy, James?
Say what? Could be breezier.
I could be breezier? Okay. I'll be breezy. I thought that was pretty breezy.
It's pretty breezy, but
Okay.
I need very breezy.
I'll go breezier. Got it.
I need super duper breezy.
Not triple super breezy?
No.
Show us the path, James.
All right. My number 20 is a movie called No Sudden Move, directed by Steven Soderbergh. It's kind of like a film noir crime caper thriller, and it's got a great cast, including Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro in kind of the main gangster roles. And it's like a more serious time period-y Ocean's 11, I would say. But not as much fun, but still interesting, and with probably the best cameo of the year. My number 20, No Sudden Move.
I think I'm on a beach right now, James, because I felt that breeze.
Yep. There you go.
All right. My number 20 is Lamb. And this is not a movie that I loved, but I like movies that take chances like Lamb. And I thought it was well executed. And I want to support movies like Lamb, even though it was a pretty weird movie. Um, I really appreciated the filmmaking's uh, use of pace, tension, cinematography. It was really good to look at. I thought thematically it was strong. It gave us some weird visuals, an interesting end, and yeah, I like films like that. Even if this particular one was pretty weird. So Lamb makes my list over some more conventional fare.
Nice. My number 19 is Oxygen. This is a movie starring Melanie Laurent. She plays a woman who wakes up in a pod of some sort, and she doesn't know how she got there, why she's there, where she is. And throughout the movie, we are watching her figure out why she's in this pod and how she can escape, and learning about her world as she is also. This movie is really it survives on the back of Melanie Laurent, who is the only person in this movie and has to act with a camera pretty much in her face the whole time because the cameras were in the pod with her. And because of her, this movie is very successful. And it's a movie that I enjoyed. And as I was making my list, I needed to include in my top 20.
My number 19 is King Richard, which is the biopic of the father of Venus and Serena Williams. It kind of like shows, it's not really a biopic of him, but it does focus on him as they are young ladies who are training to become world-class athletes. And I enjoyed this movie a lot. I found it to be very easy to watch, surprisingly easy to watch Will Smith kind of sink into a character that's not acting like just another version of Will Smith on screen. And he's occasionally been able to do this across his career between this and like Pursuit of Happiness and a couple of other ones, maybe 7 pounds. 7 pounds? I think that's what that movie's called. Sometimes he can make these serious movies and surprise me. And he did that with this one. And I also thought like the entire supporting cast was excellent as well. Probably the feel good watch of the year for me, King Richard.
Oh, wow. Okay, sure. A great example of the microgenre of relatives of famous athletes.
Are there any others? I can't think of one.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, my number 19 is 9 Days, which is a small little film, kind of I don't know if it's sci-fi or fantasy, but a guy who oversees souls on Earth. He gets an empty slot when someone dies, and so he has to fill it with a new soul. And so he spends a week interviewing multiple candidates to get a sense of who is ready to become a human baby on Earth. And it's a very sensitive, quiet, funny, little philosophical film. And I dig those. It was well acted, and it just gives you something to chew on and think about. So 9 Days is my number 19.
My number 18 is a Netflix movie called Bo Burnham Inside. This is a performance piece, you can call it, that he made during the midst of quarantine in 2020. And he through song, he kind of covers all sorts of topics, varying from, how he's feeling about being in quarantine, being in isolation, social media, climate change, all these other aspects all come into it. And it's both a interesting look into a person trying to handle isolation through art, and also just what you can do with one person in one room. Even though I don't think he was actually locked in a room for, months on end, even that presentation was pretty effective.
I did not consider that one for some reason.
Really?
Why? Maybe I didn't mark it watched. That's possible.
Okay. Well, it's not going to be a super bingo.
There we go. My number 18 is The Beta Test, which I like this movie a lot. I really need to rewatch it because I think with a rewatch it could move up substantially. But it stars Jim Cummings, who also wrote and directed the film. Jim Cummings also wrote and directed his first two films, Thunder Road, which I love, and The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which I thought was all right. But the beta test is great, especially if you're a fan of film and Hollywood at the same time, because it's about this agent in today's time who is used to operating in the old version of Hollywood, where you can be sexist and be coke fueled and crazy and all these types of things, and the world has kind of changed underneath him, and it's made him very jaded. And it's really funny and dark, and Jim Cummings just has a very specific way of telling a story that really works for me when it works, and works for me in Thunder Road, and it definitely worked for me in the beta test.
Nice. My number 18 is a French film called Petite Maman, and it's a very short film. It's like 75 minutes. But it manages to tell a complete and kind of heartwarming, touching little story with really, really compelling child performances at the core. And I think it is a sweet, simple, and well told story about dealing with grief. And I liked it a lot. So it's my number 18.
My number 17 is technically a 2020 film on Letterboxd. However, it did not get a release to any of us until February of 2021. So I'm including it on my list, and this is I Care a Lot. This is starring Rosamund Pike, Peter Dinklage, and Diane Wiest. Rosamund Pike plays a woman who acts as a conservatorship towards the elderly for the purpose of defrauding them out of their money. So she's not a good person. She targets Diane Wiest as someone that she can defraud, but her son, Peter Dinklage, who has his own nefarious background, figures out what's going on, and the two of them go toe to toe. This is a dark but fun thriller with kind of shades of an 80s movie at times, and it's a movie that I really enjoyed and kind of jumped out to me. How's it making my list?
Did anybody else have a hard time with the release dates this year? Like, I don't know if it was a pandemic thing, just because so many movies shifted around, but like, I really had to go through my 2020 list and be like, okay, these say 2020, but I definitely did not have access until 2021 on a bunch of them. I Care a Lot is a movie that I don't think would have made my list, but I don't even think it was in contention because the date was different, possibly. I don't know.
I have 3 movies on my top 20 that are considered 2020 by Letterboxd, but because of release dates, I consider them 2021 films because there's no
Sure.
way anyone could have watched them in 2020
Yeah.
unless you went to an obscure festival.
My number 17 is not an obscure film. It's a Pixar movie titled Luca. It's on Disney Plus, and it's an animated movie, as is all the Pixar movies. And I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed my time in the small seaside Italian village where the story takes place. All the kids were charming, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty idealized version of Italy with this fantasy story wrapped around the setting. And it's not my favorite Pixar movie. It never will be, but I enjoyed my time with Luca.
Nice. My number 17 is a Matt Damon film called Stillwater. And this is, roughly inspired by a true story where a father visits his daughter who's in prison in France for killing a friend. And he thinks that she's innocent, and so he's going to try to clear her name. And it's a drama, with some fish out of water elements. And I found it super interesting to watch. I really enjoyed the watch. It definitely went places that I was not expecting it to go. And that just made me all the more curious how it would resolve. But yeah, Stillwater, my number 17.
My number 16 is Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk. In this movie, he plays a mild-mannered office worker, I believe, who gets sucked into a violent past that he has tried to leave behind him. And it's kind of a John Wickian style story about someone who we think is one thing and then is able to find these deep power or abilities he has of violence and then be something else. It's definitely a more fun take on the John Wick formula, less serious, and it has a great team up with Bob Odenkirk, the RZA, and Christopher Lloyd in the end, which I found to be very, very fun.
My number 16 is Belfast, which is a movie that's getting a lot of hype these days. It's at the top of a lot of people's lists, and I enjoyed it as well. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh and director of Thor and Thor: The Dark World.
That is not why Kenneth Branagh is famous.
Maybe we can find some better movies he's directed.
Loosely based on his childhood experience, I believe. I don't know how much is his exact experience, but from what I understand, there's definitely influence here. It's mostly a black and white movie, although it does pop into color here and there. And I didn't know what to expect. For some reason, I thought it was like a war movie, and then I saw that I think it's PG or PG-13, and the poster kind of makes it look like what's that movie about the little kid who wants to dance?
Billy
Elliot. It kind of looks like Billy Elliot. The poster does. So I had no clue what to expect from Belfast, and what I got was like a drama with comedy and fast paced and lighthearted yet serious, and I just enjoyed all of it. Belfast.
Nice. My number 16 is James Bond, No Time to Die. I thought this was a fun movie to watch. It had a lot of great scenes, good characters. I liked how it ended. I thought it was a great Bond movie. It's what you expect when you want to see a Bond movie, and it was a good one. And I like Daniel Craig as Bond. Yeah. So No Time to Die, my number 16.
My number 15 is Stowaway. This is a sci-fi philosophical movie about 3 astronauts who are on their way to Mars and discover a 4th person is also on the spaceship with them, and then are given a moral quandary of what do they do on a ship meant for 3 people that now has 4 people. There's definitely a mix of space action as well as some philosophical questions. And I know we talk about this a lot on the podcast and didn't work for all of us, but this movie really worked for me.
My number 15 is The Card Counter. This is a Paul Schrader movie that we really haven't talked about on the podcast, but it stars Oscar Isaac, Tiffany Haddish, Willem Dafoe. I don't know what I want to say about this movie because it's definitely not as advertised, I would say. Like you would assume it's about a guy who's good at blackjack, who counts cards and, is kind of like a degenerate and stuff happens to him. You'd assume it's that movie, and it's absolutely not that movie. It's, let's just say like he has a strong motivation for being good at card counting. And those motivations are just, yeah. I don't know what to say about it. So what I will say is it's well acted and well told and a little disturbing, but also if you've seen First Reformed, you'll be able to handle it just fine. My 16 Card Counter.
Cool. Is that your 15?
15.
My 15 is the straight to Amazon Prime, The Tomorrow War.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Chris McKay film with Chris Pratt. Yvonne Strahovski, I think, is really good in it. Strahovski, and J.K. Simmons is in it. This is just like a sci-fi kind of future movie that it was reminiscent to me of Edge of Tomorrow, the same kind of vibe. And I dug it. I saw it at the right time to I just want this kind of large, fun popcorn movie, and I got it, and I enjoyed myself watching it. So The Tomorrow War I'm sure it's on Amazon Prime still.
That's the one movie I saw this year where I was like, they absolutely could have released this in a theater and it would have done well.
Oh,
they should have just
for
held
sure.
on to this for another year.
Yep.
Yeah. And it got no marketing really, so it just disappeared.
Yeah. Seemed crazy.
Tomorrow War is not going to make my top 20, but definitely a movie on that, Matt, I saw. It was fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My number 14 is The Power of the Dog, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Cody Smith-McPhee. Takes place in 1920s Montana. Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons play ranchers. Jesse Plemons marries Kirsten Dunst and brings also with her teenage son, Cody Smith-McPhee, which Benedict Cumberbatch verbally harasses and tortures the two of them until we learn more about Benedict Cumberbatch, and then the story kind of turns on itself and we learn about his past. And this movie has an ending that really worked for me also, and all made sense. And one of my favorite Benedict Cumberbatch performances by far. So yeah, number 14, Power of the Dog.
My number 14 is Petite Maman.
That's a bingo.
That seemed really loud. Is that loud?
Pretty loud.
All right.
You can turn it down a little bit.
Let me pipe that down just a tiny bit. Yeah, so Petite Maman is directed by the same director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Yeah, second movie I've seen from her, and it's such a charming movie. It's amazing. I'm sure it'll probably come up on probably a third list. I would guess it's been on 2 now, and we'll talk more about it then. I don't know. If not, we'll talk about it on a separate episode because I want to talk about Petite Maman. It's super fun and fun. It's super great and interesting and
fun.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about Petite Maman other than it's super charming. My number 14.
Cool. My number 14, James previously nominated King Richard as the feel-good movie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to nominate my number 14, Coda. This is a film that you guys watched way ahead of me. Both really liked it. I finally caught up with it. It's the story of Ruby, who is the daughter of 2 deaf parents and has a deaf brother, but she is a hearing child. And they are fishermen, and she is kind of relied on to be this interpreter between her family and the hearing world. And so it's a coming of age story for her as she's trying to figure out what her identity is apart from her family and within her family. I really enjoyed it. It's a great little film, and it's my number 14.
My number 13 is a movie on Apple TV Plus, which I'm not hearing a lot about, but I think more people should see and look into, and that is Swan Song. This movie starring Mahershala Ali, Naomi Harris, and Glenn Close. Mahershala Ali plays a man with a terminal illness. We're not quite sure what. And he enters a program where he is cloned and can decide to have his clone be given his memories and then sent to replace him without his family ever knowing that he was sick and that he had died, and now there's a new one of him there. And this movie is mostly Mahershala Ali talking to Mahershala Ali to see, what is the nature of existence and memory and what is real, what isn't. This movie definitely gave me Ex Machina vibes without all the menace. And it's the first movie where Mahershala Ali is the star. And he's such the star, they put him in there twice.
The menace is my favorite part of Ex Machina.
Yeah, this is more philosophical than Ex
Sure.
Machina. I don't want to say they're the same movie because they're not, but there is a similarity of what is a real person.
I don't think I was aware of Swan Song.
It
I never
might
heard of it.
only be getting marketing on Apple TV Plus. I'm not sure.
Yep. Could be. I'm into it. My number 13 is Dune. Another movie I'm into. Can't wait for the sequel. This one directed by Denis Villeneuve. And yeah, I mean, it would probably be higher if it wasn't half a movie. But what I saw, I like. James likey and want more. Dune 2 in 3 or 4 years from now, right? Something like that. Because it seems like he's
I
gonna
believe
slow
2
roll that one.
years.
2 years?
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. My number 13 is called John in the Hole. And this is listed as a coming of age psychological thriller. And you could, I think, aptly describe it as Home Alone, as directed by Haneke.
Sure. Or Yorgos Lanthimos or
Sure, yeah.
Lynn
Yorgos
Ramsey.
Lanthimos.
Isn't that just called Straw Dogs? Didn't they make that
Ramsey.
movie already?
This is about a boy who is, just starting to figure out his place in the world, becoming a man. And the way he does that is he entraps his family in a deep hole bunker that they cannot escape. And then he lives it up, life without them. And the whole movie, it plays like an A24 film. It's got this tense, menacing subtext the whole time, but somewhere in there, there's things to be mined. I don't know exactly what the film is telling us, but it is whispering things all over the place, and I just found it very interesting and intriguing, and it's super well crafted for a debut directorial performance, and all the performances are great. It's got the dad is Michael C. Hall from Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I like John in the Hole. I think it's an interesting watch. My number 13.
That's right behind Petite Maman as a movie I want to discuss more.
Yeah.
I would say.
That's discussable for sure.
Mhm.
My number 12, this was almost a super bingo, James. Dune.
That's a bingo.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to what you said, James. Denis Villeneuve, the visuals were great. I think he told the Dune story in a comprehensible way, which is a very dense world that gets built through the book.
Well, he
And
told
maybe
half the story in a comprehensible way.
right, and maybe we're being unfair by judging this movie for being half a story, because that's what we were given was half a story. But
Mhm.
I think that's what my biggest hang up was it just kind of ends, and it's not the movie's fault, but that's what happens. So
Mhm.
number 12.
My number 12 is also
That's a bingo.
this is gonna get old real fast.
Real fast.
The Power of the Dog, previously mentioned. I agree with Kyle that this is a great movie with great performances, including solid central performance from Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know if he's the center, but a lot of other characters' actions revolve around him. So I'm gonna run with it. Beautiful looking movie and discussable ending. What more can you ask for? My number 12.
Nice. Well, my number 12 has been previously mentioned. It is Luca.
That's a bingo.
I'm sticking with it. I don't care.
You're committed to the bit now.
Charming is absolutely a word for Luca. It is just a easy movie to settle into. Pixar really knows what they're doing most of the time with their films, and I found this one particularly nostalgic for a time, a place, and a childhood I did not have. So I liked it quite a lot.
My number 11 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I did not care about Marvel MCU Spider-Man going into this movie. I watched it for this podcast, and it got me hooked on Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the MCU, and also did an amazing job of summing up 20 years of Spider-Man movies into this one movie. A lot to talk about, a lot that could be spoiled. Not gonna get into all of it, but this movie definitely surprised me and made me care about MCU Spider-Man.
Wow. Who'd have thought? My number 11 is The Last Duel. It was an amazing inaudible shrug you did there, Kyle.
I'm just gonna mime the rest of the episode. Really want those YouTube views.
My number 11 is The Last Duel, which is a historical drama from Ridley Scott, director of Gladiator and Alien and a bunch of other things that
Blade
are great.
Runner.
And what? Roadrunner?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Roadrunner.
Blade Runner. This one stars Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, and Ben Affleck, and it's co-written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And there's a third writer, Nicole Holofcener, who I heard in an interview they hired strictly because they didn't want to write the female's perspective.
Yeah.
Not that they
wanted a
didn't
woman
want to
it.
write it; they didn't feel right writing it without somebody on the team taking the lead for that story, which I thought was cool. It's a medieval set movie with a really cool battle at the end of it, and kind of dripping with dirty grossness from the time period, and kind of movie we don't get very often. We probably won't get more because this one bombed, but I think it's worth a watch if you passed it by the first time. The Last Duel.
Yeah, for sure. And my number 11 is Bad Trip. This is half kind of candid camera footage of pranks on normal people and half like kind of contrived narrative to piece it all together. But it is Eric Andre and his friend taking a road trip to see a girl that he has a crush on. And on the way, they kind of, go through and pull pranks on Americans. And the pranks are really just them being idiots and people responding kindly to how silly they are. And I found this movie to be hilarious and endearing. So I liked Bad Trip quite a lot. So it's my number 11.
That movie is on my list of movies that I feel uncomfortable watching on an airplane next to people.
All right, that was our top 11 to 20 favorite films of 2021. We're now going to do our top 10 favorite films of 2021. Just a reminder, fellas, you can slow down if you want to on these, but you certainly don't have to if you don't have much to say that you didn't say in a longer review or whatever. We're going to jump into it. Let's go. Kyle,
Right.
what's your number 10?
My number 10, Petite Maman.
That's a bingo.
Is that a super duper bingo?
No, that's not a super duper.
No, that's a Tringo.
That's a Tringo, which I just learned right now.
That's a Tringo because bingo, B-I, buy for 2 people.
Sure.
3 people, it's try. Tringo.
Okay.
But why can't it be a Tringo?
We need a page on the website for these.
All right. So I'll get a little bit more into Petite Maman, and if you guys want to jump in on some more thoughts, feel free.
Sure.
So this is a French movie, Petite Maman, about a woman, her husband, and her 8-year-old daughter that travel to the woman's mother's or her childhood home. Her mother had just passed away. Zach, what you're shaking your head at me?
No, I just love how you're describing this so far.
Well,
They go to the grandma's house.
Yeah, they're going to grandma's house. All right, I'm setting it up.
Grandma who passed away.
So 2 moms, 2 daughters, and yeah. So they're going to grandma's house. Grandma passed away. And while the girl is at grandma's house, she lives out kind of in the woods, she is exploring the woods and finds another girl who's out there building a fort, and they become friends. And that's all I really want to set up from this movie because there's definitely more to it. This movie is about friendship. It's about childhood. It's about grief. It's also one of the best child performances I've seen in a movie. Watching those 2 girls play together and be kids and interact was incredibly charming, and how they would kind of giggle, how they would talk to adults, talk to each other. It was such a pleasure just to watch these kids have fun and kind of the innocence of that, while they also are aware of greater things happening in the movie too. It's not just kids running around and playing. And I was completely charmed, completely surprised by this movie. It's only 72 minutes long, and I definitely could have used more of it, but it also told the story it needed to tell in that time, and I'm totally fine with that. You said this is the same director as Portrait of a Lady on Fire,
Mhm.
and I really want to see her direct a horror movie because there are times in both this movie and in that one where the shots are set up like something that could be in a slow burn horror movie. And obviously, these are not horror movies, but just her direction brings that out in me sometimes. And I
Hmm.
kind of want to see what she could do with a horror film.
I'm not against it, but I'll watch whatever she makes, horror movie or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna like not watch her next movie. It's not horror. I just would like to see her try her hand at it with her directing style.
Sure, I could see it. Zach, anything else to add? Petit Mama?
No, I don't think so. It's got a slow pace, but it's not too slow. And again, it's so short that it's like just give it a chance. It's good.
Absolutely. I think anybody could give it a chance, and I think you'll get something out of it. The only thing I would add probably to what Kyle said is more of a reiteration that the child acting is so great, and they use it. Um, they don't overload any single scene with anything. Like there's not like they're not throwing plot at you. They're like gently leading you down a path, and they're allowing this these two little girls, their friendship lead you down that path. And then before long, you completely buy that these kids are friends, which just makes the ending all that much more impactful. And that's what I really liked about the movie is like
Yeah.
they weren't just giving us good child acting because they could. They were giving us good child acting because the ending doesn't work if you don't believe those two girls became fast friends. You know what I mean? And liked each other enough to want to stick around for one more day around each other. And
And
yeah.
the
Go ahead.
movie is a great example of not having to spell everything out for you.
Mhm.
Like for instance, you know that the grandma is dead at the beginning of the film
Mhm.
because it shows her saying goodbye to an old lady, and then she goes next door and says goodbye to another old lady, goes next door, says goodbye to a third old lady, and then goes to an empty room that her mom is like removing pictures from the wall. And
Mhm.
then she asks, "Can I keep her cane?" And that's enough to let you know, like, okay, we're in a nursing home and she befriended all these like neighbors, but the reason that she's there is because her mother is no longer there, or grandmother.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just, so many movies feel like they need to just spell everything out and give you so much exposition, and this one did not.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why 72 minutes, just because it could be such an efficient storyteller.
Mhm.
Yeah. My number 10 is The Killing of Two Lovers. It's a movie we watched earlier this year, and I feel has grown on me. I need to watch it again. It's another movie that's fairly short, 84 minutes. Not sure if that's going to be a trend or not with these movies, but yeah, just a small drama, very specifically told, has an amazing economy of story to it, and not necessarily ambiguous plot, but certainly things to discuss and think about at the end of the movie. Not necessarily like any moral stories being told here, but just an interesting way to tell a story that on paper is, you know, your typical domestic conflict, I would say. And yet it worked for me in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. My number 10.
This is a movie that is not on my list just because it didn't pop up because it's listed as a 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to. I think of it as a 2021 film, and I liked it a lot, so it probably would be on my list, but
Sure.
it wasn't even a consideration.
I keep my own running list throughout the year just so I can make sure some of those movies that technically are considered last year still make my list.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Because if I was to just click on Letterboxd 2020 or 2021, I would be missing a couple movies.
I will say,
Gotcha.
I know we kind of said this already, but typically there's 2 or 3 that have that issue. This year, there was a lot.
Yeah, a lot more.
And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's pandemic related, that a lot of movies came out like early January, early February, like the Sundances of the world and those types of movies. And then they held them until this year.
Mhm.
And so there's just a ton listed for 2020 that are
There is
2021.
also the fact that the Oscars extended their eligibility to the end of February.
right.
So movies that got released this year at the beginning of the year then made the 2020 Oscars. So it's weird to think of them as being movies from this year, even though they already got their Oscar.
That's another thing I had a hard time with too. And we can probably talk about it at the end of the list because maybe some of those will have made your list. But like
Mhm.
anything that was at the Oscars last year, I didn't include.
Oh,
Same
interesting.
with me. If it was in the
So-
Oscars for last year, it's not going on my list.
I included one Oscar winner on my
Yeah.
list.
And I wouldn't argue with you for doing that, but I was just like confused by it. So I was like, I'm just going to draw a line and say, it was in
That
the
is
Oscars last year. I'm not considering
Completely
it, so.
fair. Completely fair.
Okay, my number 10 is Dune.
That's a bingo.
This movie has pretty spectacular visuals, great music, really compelling characters. My first exposure to the Dune mythology, and it's probably higher on my list than James, just because, or than both of you, really, just because I didn't mind at all when the movie ended. I didn't feel like I was losing something or missing something or didn't get something that I wanted. I was totally fine with how and when it ended, and so that wasn't like a chip on off it when that happened. But I thoroughly enjoyed my experience watching Dune. It's pretty awesome experience to watch.
Mm.
What?
When Dune ended, you didn't feel like anything was missing from that story? I mean, that's an
like-
insane statement.
Like Zendaya, for example.
No, what I'm saying is I didn't feel like this incompleteness. I felt like this story ended, and I'm excited for the next chapter.
By design, it's incomplete.
Nah, I don't. I think because the Dune mythology, I mean, it's like 8 books. It just goes on forever. This is just one check-in with the Dune mythology, and there'll be another one, and then that one won't be a complete story. I mean, there's so much more that happens after the next movie's going to end.
But
that for me, this was my little moment with Dune.
But this movie is based off of half of one book. This isn't. They didn't take a bunch of books and make it into this Dune movie. They took the first book called Dune, made half of it, and are going to make the other half of it. So it'd be like if they made Fellowship of the Ring, and they have the Council of Elrond, and they say we're taking off, and then credits, and you have to wait 2 more years to find out what happens with the
They
Fellowship.
kind of did. No, they kind of did, because the Lord of the Rings movies don't follow the books.
Oh,
exactly. They
no.
take parts of the books.
Nope.
And they put them into the. What do you mean?
You're
No.
thinking of the Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings movies are they excise some things, but the Fellowship of the Ring movie follows
Is
the
the
Fellowship of the Ring book,
book.
and the next ones.
That's not true.
Okay, so tell me
Like
how I'm wrong.
Shelob and stuff is taken from one book and put in a different movie.
No,
Just because narratively it fits better.
I don't believe you're correct on that. I believe it's
Shelob is the spider, right?
Shelob was the
Yeah.
spider. Yeah.
So the spider wasn't in the theatrical release of.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Mm, Oh, you're right.
Wow.
It
It
was.
was.
You're right.
This is
you're
the
right,
most
you're right.
informed discussion.
I was
we've ever
thinking of
had.
the water, whatever that thing was in the water, outside of the.
Oh, in Fellowship, outside of the Mines of Moria. That's in the
Right.
book too. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Anyway,
Hobbit.
I
Okay.
yeah, I'm not talking about the Hobbit.
Okay.
Obviously, the Hobbit was its own little thing that got made into 3 movies. But yeah, Dune, I just didn't. I didn't feel unsatisfied when Dune ended, and I think both of you felt a little dissatisfaction with it ending. I just
don't
didn't have
know if
that.
it's dissatisfaction, but all right, we can move on.
We'll move on. My number 9 is Pig. This is the Nicolas Cage, John Wick, not John Wick movie. We talked about this movie a lot last week, so I'm not going to talk too much about it right now. But what I liked about this movie was the subversion of my expectation of it being a John Wick style movie, and its commentary on creativity, authenticity, and then as well as the Nicolas Cage character using his true skills to resolve the story in a satisfying way. This is a movie that it all worked for me. It's 90 minutes also, so it tells a complete story in a short amount of time, and I think it's totally worth checking out.
Agreed. My number 9 is New Order, which we talked a little bit about last episode when we did our top 10 last 10. And so I kind of said what I wanted to say about this movie then. But it's kind of a fantasy film of sorts about like what if the French Revolution actually happened today in modern times in Mexico. And it's kind of a class warfare type movie, rich versus the poor, and it's very well done. My number 9.
Nice. My number 9 is Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, this was a really well done Marvel movie. It had a lot of things that you want from a Marvel movie. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to watch. Great crowd reactions. A lot going on. It was well done. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
My number 8 is The Green Knight, starring Dev Patel. This is the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and the year-long journey he takes to fulfill his destiny with said Green Knight. Direction-wise, this movie is beautiful to look at. David Lowery directed it, and every scene is gorgeous. Dev Patel does an awesome job. Alicia Vikander's in this movie as a dual role, and she is great in it. This is the one movie in my top 10, top 20, which I think I need to rewatch. I didn't get a chance to rewatch before making this list, but it's a movie where I had some conflicted feelings about it. The first time I saw it, I think I wasn't completely satisfied. And now I've had some time and some distance. It's worth a second look, and it might even move up with that second look.
My
Nice.
number 8 is a movie titled Limbo, which is a movie that I watched recently. I crammed it for this episode, and I was super happy I did. I really enjoyed Limbo. It's very Wes Anderson / Taika Waititi-esque in that it's got a very specific, it's got Taika Waititi's sense of humor and a little bit of his shooting style, like more his New Zealand shooting style than his Marvel shooting style. And a lot of Wes Anderson, I would say, in the presentation, but less in the awkwardness of storytelling. Like take Taika Waititi's more natural storytelling and plug it in. It's about a Syrian refugee who is sent to an island in Scotland to wait for word as to whether he will be getting asylum. And he's kind of in a halfway house with other single men who are from other war-torn areas of the world who are also waiting. And there's a guy there who has been waiting for over 3 years for word as to whether he's getting asylum. So he has just gotten there and is realizing that this is not going to be a short journey. And there's a series of phone calls he makes home that kind of push the story along. But the characters in this are so genuine and funny, and they're awkward, but not like in an, like, I'm going to say annoying here, but there's probably a better word for it. An annoying way, like, what's the name of that guy? Napoleon Dynamite. It's like they all
Yeah.
kind of have that Napoleon Dynamite vibe to them. Not all of them. Some of the characters have that Napoleon Dynamite vibe to them, but they're not played for goofs. They're just kind of like they're completely fish out of water. They're in the middle of this Scottish island, and last week they were in Syria, you know, and they're just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and how long do I have to be here, or can I stay? Can I go? I can't work. I can't, type of thing. It's I'm making it sound like a drama, and it does have dramatic moments, but it's really a comedy at its core, and I enjoyed it. Limbo, my number 9.
Nice. My number 8 is Spencer. This is the Pablo Larraín biopic of Princess Diana. And this movie was just so well made and so well acted by Kristen Stewart. I was just very impressed by the intensity that she brought to this role. This movie feels so claustrophobic, so tense, and I'm sure so much of the particulars were fictionalized, and maybe to the point where this character is a act of fiction, but it just felt like I was brought into her world so intensely, and her performance is everything in this film. That was really, really well done, and definitely a movie that I want to rewatch. It's unsettling, and like it's almost like a I've said this before, like a horror movie in just how much internal drama she is carrying on her shoulders, just dealing with the affair of her husband and the pressures of being a royal and living up to expectations placed on her and that kind of thing. Anyway, I thought this movie was awesome, and so Spencer is my number 8.
My number 7, another Marvel movie, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This movie starring Simu Liu as the aforementioned Shang-Chi, Tony Leung, and Awkwafina. All three of them are great in this movie. And this movie is Marvel's take on making a Hong Kong-style action movie. There's a lot of callbacks to other famous movies like Hero, the Rush Hour series, 36 Chambers of Shaolin. The fight choreography is awesome. I think the story it's telling is one of definitely the better Marvel stories, and Tony Leung plays a great bad guy. What's preventing this movie from being a top 5 is it kind of suffers from that Marvel bloat towards the very end there, where it has to be 2.5 hours and there has to be a big CGI battle. But where this movie really succeeds is when we're looking at these CGI helped martial arts sequences, but that's not the focus. The focus is the martial arts on work and not just what kind of cool animation they could do around it. Another movie that surprised me, was not really familiar with Shang-Chi story whatsoever, but was completely surprised and pleased with this movie.
My number 7 is Quo Vadis Ida, which is translated, according to Wikipedia, to "Where are you going, Ida?" It's awesome. I love this movie. It's a hard watch for sure. It's a wartime set movie about a UN translator, this woman named Ida. She's old enough to have grown sons, and her sons and husband are a part of an entire town that's being evacuated during the Bosnian War in the 90s, mid 90s. And so she's a UN translator, and the war is coming to an end, and her side has lost. But the UN is trying to help her side evacuate safely. And so she's a translator for the UN, and that provides her certain protections that are not extended to her sons and husband. And so the entire movie, it takes place over the course of maybe a day or two, where she is just frantically trying to pull every string she can to make sure that they are safe throughout this evacuation and protection process. And she just, the actor who plays Ida is amazing, and I believed everything this movie was shelling out to me. And yeah, hard watch for sure, but really solid performances and well made. My number 8.
Nice.
Nice.
It's not
8.
one that I've checked out yet, but I certainly want to.
Definitely worth it.
Okay, my number 7 is we saw it on Netflix recently. It's directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's Tick Tick Boom. I kind of surprised myself by how taken I was by this film. It's stuck in my memory longer than I thought it would, but I really liked it. I like Andrew Garfield's performance. I'm realizing that I kind of like Andrew Garfield and everything. Like, I
Sure.
just kind of enjoy either his acting or his acting choices, for which films he takes. But he's a likable dude. This movie has really good music, which is important because it's a musical about a musical writer. And it's got really interesting staging because the movie is actually like a one-act play that retells his story. Like, so it's a film of a one-act play that is recounting his personal story. And so it switches gears a lot, and I think really to good use. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Tick Tick Boom.
I recently watched a video with an interview with Andrew Garfield, and I either forgot that he's British or never knew in the first place. Because he
Sure.
opened his mouth, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Sure. He had another movie this year called The Eyes of Tammy Faye that I really want to see.
Oh,
saw that.
I haven't seen that one. Okay.
I saw that for sure.
And he uses his
plays
natural
a very
British accent in
naive
that,
character.
right?
No, he
Okay.
doesn't. Yeah. He plays a very different character than any of these others.
My number 6 is a documentary directed by Questlove, and this is Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. This is about a music series that took place in Harlem, New York in 1969, around the same time that Woodstock was happening, and was a forgotten music series that featured all these incredible African-American artists at the time, including Stevie Wonder, the Staples Sisters, Mahalia Jackson, the list goes on. And this concert series was filmed. It was going to be presented on TV or made into a movie, and then was just forgotten. And 50 years later, Questlove was able to find this footage, was able to get in touch with performers who were there 50 years ago, as well as people who attended it, and tell the story of this concert series. And this is a great documentary where it balances talking heads with footage from that day, because that's what we really want to see. And it gives you full performances. So you'll have someone set up and talk about, oh yeah, when I saw Mavis Staples and Mahalia Jackson sing a song from Martin Luther King, and then they'll play 10 minutes of them just singing that song together, which is great to see. But my favorite moment from this movie is they're talking to a guy who's probably in his mid 50s, and he's basically saying, like, I remember going to this concert and then thinking I dreamed it, because no one ever talked about it since then. And to see this footage and realize this actually happened, this actually was something that I did, not just a memory I made up, was incredible. Because I think we all have memories from when we were little kids, and we're like, wait, did that really happen, or is that something that my brain just kind of made up? And so for him to get this affirmation that yes, he really did go to a concert when he was 5 in the park and see Stevie Wonder play, and that's something he just made up in his brain, was a really cool moment.
Nice. I like that movie as well, for sure. I didn't include any documentaries, but it's definitely on my list of favorite documentaries for the year.
I only watched 2 this year, so I'm like, well, I can't not include it. I think it's an important enough movie where
Sure.
it deserves to make the actual list, not just the secondary list.
My number 6, not a documentary, an animated movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Oh, this is high.
It's really high. I gave it a
Wow.
4.5. And
Wow.
well, I mean, that was a long time ago because it was early 2021 that we watched it. And I still have good vibes about it. I need to rewatch it because I don't remember too much about the particulars, more just that I had a lot of fun watching it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the presentation a lot. Like like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I love. I have to actively try to keep up with it because I think it's made for younger people, I think. But I enjoy the act of trying to keep up with that movie. Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is from the same studio and a lot of the same creative people. Just is at half pace compared to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And yet they still keep some of the playfulness that I find it interesting about Into the Spider-Verse. Like the presentation of the art style. It's a 3D animated movie, but it kind of looks like 2D animated within the 3D. There's like brush strokes on some of the lines and things like that just is a touch for an animated movie that most studios just don't bother with. And in this one, there's still a little bit of that experimental element to the animation carried over from the team that did Into the Spider-Verse. And yeah, it was a surprise to me that I would enjoy it, and I did. And it's my number 6. Can't wait to revisit it.
Well, that one's not going to appear on my list, but my number 6 is Nobody. This is the Bob Odenkirk film, and I just thought this movie was a lot of fun. It's absolutely just a fan service movie of giving us an older John Wick's uncle kind of movie.
Uncle Wick.
But it was Uncle Wick, but it was just fun in all the right places. And it's great seeing Bob Odenkirk in this kind of action role, which is just absolutely never where I would have pictured him after seeing him in Mr. Show, And it's a ton of fun. It's violent. It's got Doc Brown in it. Yeah, It's great.
Great. I'm glad to see it made one of your lists also. Maybe a third. We'll see. All right. My number 5 is the previously mentioned CODA.
That's a bingo.
Yeah. CODA is an acronym for Child of Deaf Adults. And this is about, a girl who is hearing, but the rest of her family, including her parents and her brother, are not. They are all fishermen, and they rely on her to be their connection to the hearing world, to help run the business, to talk to clients, and to sort of keep the business afloat. But she, wants to sing, right? She has her own passion she wants to pursue. So the plot sounds standard of, girl caught between one world and the other, but her parents keeping her around and she wanted to break out. But what makes this movie so charming is just that central family. They are so much fun to be around. The parents, who are played by Marlee Matlin and Troy Kotzer, if I pronounce that correctly, are incredible characters, just in how they act around their child, how they act around each other. Watching two deaf people fight with each other is something to behold, and they do that so well. It's just watching this family and being with this family is what brings the charm of this movie together and what elevates it beyond a rather standard plot of, kid wants to break out of small town. I don't remember. I think, James, you recommended this one to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was a very good recommendation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. My number 5 is Titane. It's a movie I have not talked about on this podcast because
Titane?
I just watched it.
You weirdo.
How dare you? I mean, this is one of those movies that it's really high because it's really good, and it's also not one that anybody listening needs to watch unless you hear more about it and decide that it's something you want to watch, because it's definitely a challenging movie for adults, I would say. If you like David Cronenberg movies, but you like the grossest David Cronenberg, like elements of David Cronenberg, that's this movie. But I will say that David Cronenberg movies, I feel, sometimes have something to say and sometimes are just weird for whatever reason. This movie's weird in 5 ways and also has 5 reasons for being weird. Like, there's nothing in the movie that I can point to that's just the weirdest version of this for no reason. I think it's the weirdest version of this. Every weird decision has a reason to it. And I don't know. You notice I'm not using the word justification. I'm using the word reason because sometimes I think the choices are justified and sometimes it's just the weirdest path to get there. Or the most in your face way to get there instead of there's almost no subtlety to the movie. And I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, I've literally said nothing other than the title and that it's weird. And that's probably where I'll leave it. Add this one to the list of movies I'll never watch with a family member.
Great.
But
Well, I haven't seen it, but I'm aware of it.
if you like David Cronenberg movies, look into it.
Did you like Raw?
Never saw it. Scared of that movie.
I've heard that this one is harder than Raw.
I mean, it's the same director. It's her follow-up
Yeah.
to Raw.
All right, my number 5 is Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Wow.
This is the 4-hour recut of the, I don't know when this come out, 2017-ish.
I can't believe you shook your head when I said the Mitchells versus the Machines and you put Justice League on your top 20.
In my top 5, James.
In your top 5. That's insanity. All right, let's hear it.
Have you seen it?
I've seen enough of it.
Okay, so you haven't seen
You
it.
haven't
I
seen
got
it.
you.
I haven't seen all of it.
I've seen
no.
I've seen Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Well, luckily, Mitchell versus Machines is like an hour and a half and easy to watch. Justice League is like a 4-hour epic.
It's in easy chapters. You don't have to watch it in one sitting. It breaks it up for you.
Yeah,
It does. I gave Mitchell's versus the Machines 1.5 stars.
I know.
You remember you did not like that movie at all.
That's insane.
I wasn't into it. Zack Snyder's Justice League is a rare case where it kind of took a bad film and it fixed it. I enjoyed this movie, and for something that's 4 hours long, like how do you sustain anything for 4 hours? This one did. I was invested, interested, not tired of it, ready for more. And I love how he changed the film. I think that almost universally there changes for the better. It made me like some characters more that I could have cared less about the first time around. So yeah, I think a total success, and I enjoyed it. I have not watched the black and white version. I probably don't need to, but that's there too.
It's
So you get
good,
options.
though, Zach. You really should. I mean, there might be more to mine there. Never know.
Could be. I'm open to it. Maybe we'll watch it together, James.
Never.
Zack Snyder's Justice League is colorful enough where you really need the black and white to get for that contrast.
Who knows, man?
In your defense, Zach, I did enjoy watching Justice League. It's not getting my top 20. Spoiler alert. And I want to see the post-apocalyptic Joker Batman road movie that we're never going to get.
James wouldn't know about that because it takes place in the second half of the film.
It takes place in like the final 2 minutes of the film.
Maybe I'll just skip to that.
You'll have
All
to
right.
hold that fast forward button for a long time.
My number 4 is The Harder They Fall. This is a Western movie with a predominantly black cast, and this cast is amazing. Jonathan Majors is in the lead role, who came out of nowhere for me, and I see him in everything now. And I am not everything, but he's just popping up in a lot of things, be it this, be it Marvel, other movies, and I'm A-okay with that. I like Jonathan Majors, Idris Elba, Regina King, Zazie Beetz, Delroy Lindo, Dion Cole, Lakeith Stanfield, Dan Williams Jr., etc. This list goes on. This is a Western revenge movie where Jonathan Majors is avenging the death of his parents at the hand of Idris Elba. And it kind of takes these tropes and turns them a little bit on end. I mean, for one thing, just the fact that this is a Western with African-American actors instead of just white people, which are used to most westerns, is on that end a trope turn up. It's an incredibly colorful movie, both in the costuming, the set design, the lighting. So it's much different than traditional western, and it's got a awesome soundtrack. It's got great shootout moments, and it just sort of takes a lot of things you expect from a western and amps it up enough for me to make this movie really work. This is a movie I was excited to see. I think I read one bad review of it, took it off my watch list, and then James, you said, "Oh, we should watch this one," and I watched it for the podcast, and really glad I did because this is a lot of fun.
Nice. I enjoyed that one as well.
Yeah, me too.
My number 4 is the aforementioned Pig.
That's a bingo.
I mean, we talked about this a lot last week, so I won't go too far into it, but I love this version of what's his name? Nick Cage. He's a dramatic dude, and I like it when they twist your expectation of a well-established actor. And I think he's in a lot of movies that attempt to do this with him, and most of them kind of deserve their direct-to-video status. And I think Pig definitely did not. I feel like this is a highlight in his oeuvre, and I enjoyed it. My number 4. My number 4.
Nice. My number 4 is the Ridley Scott film, The Last Duel. And
That's a bingo.
This movie it's just perfectly made for me because you got Matt Damon and Ben Affleck teaming up again to write a movie. Good Will Hunting is my favorite movie, which is the last one they wrote together. You have knights and duels and swords and castles, which is all things that I just love watching movies about. And you've got like an interesting filmic perspective where it shows the same events from 3 different angles and perspectives. And I always find that super fascinating and interesting. So this movie just had all the pieces for me. It's super well acted, with my favorite performance by Jodie Comer. She was fantastic in this. Definitely like a rising star that we'll see a lot more of. It's actually a big reason why I regret not seeing Free Guy, because she was in that as well.
Very different movie, I would say.
It's more of a prequel to this film. Last Duel, I is super good. It's not higher on my list just because the subject matter means it's legitimately uncomfortable at times to watch. But it's, I think, done deftly, and it's certainly some of the best medieval action I've seen before ever, and everything felt real and lived in, and so I really like this one a lot. And the subtlety in the differences between the perspectives I thought was very well done. So The Last Duel is my number 4.
Zach, have you seen Killing Eve?
No.
That's Jodie Comer is one half of Killing Eve, the TV show. There are 3 seasons in, and every season is just 8 episodes, and it's totally worth.
Is it good?
It's totally worth you trying season 1. If you don't like season 1, you can stop watching, but I think you will probably like it.
Okay.
And she's awesome in it. She plays like cold-blooded assassin in it.
Okay.
That's not why I think you'll like it, but she's great in it. Kyle?
My number 3 is a movie that you guys are not going to consider 2021, but I am, because it came out end of February in 2021, and this is The Father. This movie is starring Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. Anthony Hopkins plays a man who is suffering from dementia, and Olivia Colman plays We're Not Sure, because this whole movie is given through the perspective of Anthony Hopkins' character as his brain is kind of unraveling and he can't trust himself. And this is a movie about dementia that puts you in the POV of the person going, going through it, and you don't know what to trust. Just like a person who is experiencing dementia would probably feel the same way. And it was just such an effective movie of portraying that process of making the viewer not know what's the truth, what is my brain is how's my brain lying to me. There's moments that repeats and that seem cyclical, and it's a very disorienting, confusing movie that really worked for me. It's an incredible Anthony Hopkins performance. He did win the Oscar for this in 2021, so we already know how that worked out. But also Olivia Colman, who has become one of my favorite current actresses, is great in this movie too. It's a movie that I just haven't stopped thinking about all year, and it's been on my mind, so it had to make it into my list and had to be this high up.
Nice. It's a good one for sure. I like that movie a lot. My number 3 is another movie I like a lot. My third favorite movie of 2021 is Shiva Baby, which I talked a lot on the last episode about. I think it was my favorite in that top 10 last 10 episode. And I laughed more during this movie than anything else I saw this year. And none of it is like joke punchline. It's all just like awkward situations and people saying random things at just the wrong moment, and perfectly acted, and charming characters who also do kind of despicable things, not like grossly despicable, but just are not perfect humans. And yeah, just so much fun awkwardness. I love this movie, and I liked the writing and the performances and the execution. Very small movie that takes place at a Shiva, and yeah, check it out. My number 3.
Cool. My number 3 is Bo Burnham Inside. And yeah, this movie, I don't know what, it's not a movie, but it definitely has a narrative to it. It's a performance piece. But a comedy special, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it has a lot going for it. One, it's pretty insightful. It's pretty timely to our time, I would say. It's kind of a time capsule with a very specific message to like a very specific time and generation. And one thing that it didn't have to have, but it did, was just really inventive use of lights and cinematography. It went way harder than it needed to on that, and he mined the depths of what can I do with a projector and some lights, and he got a lot of mileage out of them. And so this one spoke to me as I watched it. It stuck with me after I watched it. It's definitely something on Netflix that's worth checking out. Yeah, my number 3, Inside.
My favorite moment in that performance, lighting wise, is he's singing a song in a dark room, and behind his back he has his phone flashlight turned on but hidden, and then at the right moment he just shines the flashlight on a disco ball and the whole room lights up. And
Yeah.
it's just a guy with a phone flashlight and a disco ball, and how he can just change the setting that quickly was something else.
Yeah.
All right, my number 2 is the first movie that I watched of 2021, and this was my number 1 until this week. It just got bumped off. This is Derek Del Guadio's In and of Itself. If you guys
Nice.
remember this at all.
Oh yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember it.
So good. So good.
Yeah, oh yeah. So this is kind of like Bo Burnham Inside. It's more of a performance that's been filmed. Derek Del Guadio is a storyteller magician, is the best way to put it. And he is exploring the concept of identity and, who am I and what makes us who we are through these sort of 5 short stories and snippets from his life. But he tells them all through magic. And we're not talking like rabbit out of a hat, close magic. It really is like these big performance setups where there is some aspect of illusion which works into the story, which is both inexplicable and amazing to see. So there only happens 5 or 6 times throughout the performance, but every time he does do some sort of illusion, it's incredible and leaves you scratching your head. But this the reason I want to include this as a movie is because it's not just a film of one performance. It's not like watching Hamilton on Disney Plus, where you kind of get like the experience. Frank Oz directed this, and he uses multiple moments from different performances to kind of highlight how each time Derek Delgaudio does this performance, the audience changes, the reaction changes, the outcome of the illusion changes, and it really gives you a sense of how well thought out he's crafted this, but then how much each night the performance can be just a little bit different. And I've thought about this movie all year, and every time I came back to this list, I was like, how can this not be number one? Until I saw my actual number one. So number two, Derek Delgadio's In and of Itself. It's on Hulu. I think it came out January of this year, or 2021, very early. So if you haven't seen it, I believe this was a listener recommendation also at the beginning of the year.
Mhm. It's a good one.
Yeah, so good.
My second favorite movie of the year was easily Spider-Man: No Way Home. I love this, and much like Carl over here, it made me care about Tom Holland Spider-Man.
What's with the microaggression?
Microaggression. There's no aggression here. I love Carl. So yeah, I mean, I was fine with Tom Holland Spider-Man. He was just
Carl.
fine. You know, he was not my Spider-Man, but he wasn't bad at it. He was just like it's like how much I like Thor. You know, it's a Marvel character. I like those. I like the Thor movies. They're not my favorite, but they exist and they're not bad. That's how I felt about the Spider-Man movies before No Way Home, Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Andrew Garfield, I could take or leave as Spider-Man, or could have taken or left him as Spider-Man. And absolutely, Tobey Maguire was my guy. Turns out, if you want your Spider-Man movie to be good and you want me to be engaged in it, just put makes everything else better. Because that's how it worked for me in this one. No, I mean, the reason why I like No Way Home certainly is because, but it's not certainly the only reason. It's just so well done, and it's absolutely something they could have messed up and not done well, or done well enough to get to slide by. And I feel like with the story they told, it's a movie that could very well feel like a pessimistic cash grab, and it does not feel like that, even though they grabbed a lot of cash with this movie. It feels like, even though the formula was destined to be successful from a financial perspective, they put a lot of care into the movie that didn't necessarily have to be there to get the job done. I felt like whoever wrote this movie, whoever acted in it, took an opportunity that they created, was given to them. I don't know. I'm sure it changed person to person, and they made the most of it. And they seemed to make the decision that made sense for the characters that they. I probably totally spoiled this movie, but I mean, it's made like $1 billion now. The people who have wanted to see it have seen it. Do I need to bleep all that? I'm just realizing now that
You
like,
did.
gave
I
away
mean,
the
there's.
biggest stuff.
I would normally say it's fine, but there are definitely people who did not see this in theater yet, just over COVID concerns,
Yeah. All right.
not because they're lazy.
I'll bleep a bunch then, but it's great. And you
bleep
should
some
see it.
nouns.
Some nouns?
Yeah, just some proper nouns.
Okay. So we'll just leave it there. It's great. And if you're into Spider-Man, you should see it.
Nice. Well, my number two is another Marvel movie, and it's Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings.
That's a bingo.
And I just thoroughly enjoyed this movie. From the wushu fighting that actually like advanced forward the plot and the characters, to the bus fight scene, which was so awesome and inventive, to the weapon design of the rings, I thought was really clever and well used, to the acting that, was way better than it needed to be for a Marvel action film. There's a lot to like in this movie, and I just had a great time with it.
How much do you want a Speed remake with Aquafina and Simu? After that bus scene.
Sure, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, like I think Aquafina could definitely be the Sandra Bullock role. Good.
I hadn't really
I'm glad
thought
that
it
made your
through,
list.
but sure, why not?
I think it'd be good. It'll work. All right, number 1. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any? I don't want you guys to guess. Do you have any thoughts? Just tell me if you have a guess.
So first you watch In and of Itself. You thought this is the movie of the year.
No, I
And
didn't think
then-
movie of the year.
And then like last week you watched a movie that changed that. Is that what we're
Exactly.
hearing? Okay.
Yeah, I watched In and of Itself. I
It's
started
not my number one then, because you've seen my number one. It was a long time ago. So
Yeah. I
Hmm.
watched In and of Itself. I started my 2021 list when I saw my first 21 movie, and every movie I watched kept coming underneath In and of Itself until I saw this one. My number 1 movie, my favorite movie of 2021, The Last Duel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
a
was
bingo.
So I was enjoying this movie when we got the story from Matt Damon and Adam Driver's character. And I liked all those little differences where, like you said, Zach, you would have the same scene play twice in each story. And like in one version, one character would say one thing, and the other version, the other character would have the exact same line. So like there's definitely disagreement on who said what. Inflections would change where like the dialogue would be exactly the same, but how it's being said was different, which, is always a big part of any conversation. So I was enjoying that part of it. And then we got to the Jodie Comer side of the story, and I was hooked. And I just thought it did such an effective job of telling her side of the story, of presenting something that is incredible. I mean, it's about an assault that's uncomfortable to watch, but it did not feel exploitative of the character or of the actress. So I think it walked that line of being uncomfortable for the viewer without being too much, if that's the best way to put it. And then sort of just all the politics of what she's going through in that moment. And then that final duel that's Ridley Scott doing his best directing Gladiator style right there. I was riveted by the final duel. I had no idea how it was going to end. I did not know how the story was going to conclude. There is a lot of stakes to that final duel, more than I even knew going into it. So I was super invested in it. And I mean, edge of my seat until that movie ended. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I mean, it's great to see Ridley Scott still pull it off. I mean, he's definitely an up and down director.
80s.
Yeah, he's in his 80s, right? He had some stinkers in the last 20 years. And, this movie unfortunately flopped box office wise, but I think will become known as one of his better movies in his directing oeuvre. So, yeah, Last Duel just snuck in there in the last minute as number 1.
That's awesome. Was that always one you were meaning to check out, or did I push you?
No, so it was a movie that Megan and I were going to go see in the theater. And then when we talked more about the subject matter, she was like, I don't think that's something that, I want to see, which I completely understood. So we saw The French Dispatch instead, which will be on other lists. So it's a movie that I wanted to see. didn't have the opportunity to, so I was glad I knew I needed to get it in before this episode.
Great. All right, James, what do you got?
My favorite film of 2021 out of all 103 2021 movies that I saw, my favorite of all of them is Coda.
That's a bingo.
I think this was on Zach's list, and I love
And Kyle's.
In my list.
Oh,
In my top 5.
awesome. It's a super
It's a
duper.
tringo.
It's a super duper bingo.
No, Super Duper
Um,
Bingo would be all the same movie in the same spot on all 3 lists. Come on.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
Those are near impossible.
Yeah, I don't see what could make that. Well, I mean, if we're doing like a, I don't know, top 10 Keanu Reeves
That's why it's a
movies, I
super
could
duper
see
bingo.
it happening. But all right, Coda is a coming of age movie that Zach mentioned about a girl whose parents and brother are deaf, and she kind of acts as their personal translator, and now she's graduating high school. She wants to go away to college, and this causes tension amongst the family members, because not only is their young daughter going away to college, wants to go away to college, but they are very dependent on her because she is the translator for the other 3 family members. And what I'm describing sounds like a indie drama of sorts, and it does have shades of that, but really it's just like the relationships between these characters. They're super likable. They're not perfect people. They have their issues here and there, but they're all generally well-intentioned with each other, even if sometimes the end result isn't necessarily the healthiest for everybody. And yeah, I just loved the depiction and had a lot of fun with these people. It's really funny. Like there are moments in this movie where you're literally just getting subtitles of deaf characters who are signing between each other, and it's so well written and the signing is so well acted that it made me laugh out loud, and I just read something on the screen. And to make an environment where you're so engrossed in something, like I've watched foreign films that are supposed to be comedies, and in that case I'm also reading a joke, and I can't tell you if I've ever laughed at a joke in a subtitled movie. It's why comedies don't really cross borders very well most of the time, unless they're like really slapsticky or like lots of physical comedy. Coda, while not a foreign film, has a lot of subtitles, a lot of characters who literally don't speak to each other other than using their hands, and still hilarious. I found it very funny and charming, and I think it's unique, and I enjoyed it. My favorite movie of 2021.
Nice.
That's nice.
Okay, my number 1 favorite film of 2021 is The Green Knight.
Yes.
Is that a bingo?
It's a bingo.
Kyle had it? Because I didn't.
That's a bingo.
Written and directed by David Lowery. This movie is just such a complete vision, right? So this director had an idea of the story of the Green Knight that he wanted to tell, and he created just a cinematic art piece, I think. Dev Patel is awesome in it. There's like this kind of mythological aura to it that I definitely dug, and I loved the set pieces. I loved the set design. I loved how it ended. It's so hard to land a plane on these kind of strange movies, and this one landed the plane perfectly. I thought it threaded a needle that was impossible to thread. I loved the themes and the metaphors in it. It's just, this movie really worked on me. And again, it's a medieval story. You know, we have knights and squires and, you know, castles and stuff like that. And it was awesome. So I really dug it.
Are you gonna rewatch A Ghost Story now just to see if you missed anything?
No, I hated A Ghost Story. Yeah. That was minimalism and ugh.
Same guy.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, which is exciting.
Sure.
Zach, I
All
think
right.
says a lot about us that both of us have a Sword and Knights movie as our number one.
Yeah, for sure. And The Last Duel is my number 4. So like we're in there.
Yeah, yeah. The Green Knight was our number 8 or something like that. So
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah, that's great. So by my count, we had 5 that all 3 of us had on our list.
hey, that's kind of what we thought.
Yeah.
It's not
Petit
what I thought.
Maman, Coda, Dune, Spider-Man, No Way Home, and The Last Duel.
But none of us shared a movie at the same position. Not even 2 of us.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so that was each of our own individual top 20 films of 2021. Also, we have a short list of honorable mentions, hopefully short list of honorable mentions. So it's possible that we really liked the movie you really love, and it just barely missed our list. That's what these honorable mentions are meant for. Kyle, did you have any?
I do have some, yes. Raya and the Last Dragon, the Disney movie. Really enjoyed that. It was a cool world building, cool storytelling. Just didn't make my list. The Spine of Night, the rotoscoped 80s style animated movie I talked about last week, just fell off the list. Luca, this is 3 animation in a row. Maybe there's a theme here. Luca, really agreed with you on all these points. Watched it again recently. Didn't quite make the list. Zola, which is a movie based on a Twitter thread from 2015, is it's a crazy story. It's great acting, great storytelling. It's just an uncomfortable movie to watch and a world to be in. And I couldn't, there wasn't enough going on there to say this is one of my favorite movies of the year. But definitely worth checking out. It's also a short 90 minutes. And that's probably about it for honorable mentions. Those 4.
Nice. I had Lamb, which Zach had on his list. Did you have Lamb, Kyle? I don't
20,
remember.
number 20.
Nice. So I agree on that one. Just barely missed my list. Werewolves Within, which is a werewolf comedy movie, much in the same vein of Shaun of the Dead, that absolutely should have been garbage, and I enjoyed it. Stowaway, previously mentioned by Kyle, definitely on there. Also Oxygen, which is another Netflix movie that I enjoyed this year. Raya and the Last Dragon, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I enjoyed that one. The Mauritanian. These are all movies that got 4s, by the way. The Mauritanian, Worth, which I talked about last week. Riders of Justice, which is such a weird revenge movie. Greenland, which was awesome. Greenland might creep into my top 20. Have you guys watched Greenland yet?
No, not yet. I
No.
need to.
So
based on
good.
your
If you just
enthusiasm.
the since you've been watching probably a lot of heady prestige movies, just the next movie you watch, just sit down and watch Greenland, and you'll have a good time with it for sure. Red Rocket, which is the new Sean Baker movie, I enjoyed. Tick Tick Boom, which made Zach's list, definitely enjoyed that one. Probably the closest to giving me La La Land vibes that a movie has even come close to since then. Passing, which I watched recently on Netflix, is good, and it has an unexpected ending that kind of makes the rest of the movie. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in that movie beyond the ending, but the ending surprised me. And Come On, Come On was super charming and fun to see. What's his name? Joker himself.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. I call him Leaf. To see Leaf just really not be a complete weirdo on screen. I mean, he's like, it's like you give that guy who just has spent a decade playing the weirdest things he can find, and just give him an absolutely 100% normal role, and that's kind of what makes it stand out. Is like, oh, that's right, he can be normal. Good movie though. On top of that, the end of my honorable mentions. What you got, Zach?
For me, I have King Richard, mind-blowing tennis scenes. I have Stowaway. I like that film a lot. Pig, film I didn't like, but it's interesting. So it's an honorable mention. Oxygen, fun little single room film. Black Widow, which no one has mentioned, and I probably liked more than you guys, and The Harder They Fall, which was on Kyle's list.
Nice. We also have some regrets. These are movies.
Oh, can I quick say?
Yeah.
There's 4 movies I didn't include on the list because I couldn't pull the trigger that they were 2021 films.
Okay.
Although you could make a case.
Let's hear 'em.
In and of itself, absolutely incredible. That would be top 5 material for sure.
Awesome.
If I put it on the list. I Care a Lot, The Father, and The Killing of Two Lovers. I just didn't think about. I didn't realize it probably would have been on the list as well.
I think there's a really good case for in and of itself because even though it's 2020, it got a Hulu release in 2021. Like there really was no other way to see it unless you went to some festival prior to that.
Yeah. I don't completely disagree. All right, these are regrets. These are movies that we wanted to see, but for some reason we didn't. Movies, at least as far as my regrets, these are movies that I think on paper, because of who made it or what the plot is or the buzz I've heard over time, could have cracked my top 20 had I had seen it. So, Kyle, do you have any regrets?
I do. Yeah, there are some movies that just you didn't get time to or don't really have a way to watch yet. The Rescue, which you mentioned last week, Zach. Definitely want to check that out. Memoria with Tilda Swinton. Benedetta, the new Paul Verhoeven movie. Spencer, still need to see that one. Licorice Pizza, the PTA movie, which is that in small release right now?
Yeah, it's out in Orlando. I just
Okay.
can't get to it for some reason.
Yeah, but it's not going out to see that. So I'll wait till it's streaming or something. The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is the Denzel Washington and just Joel Cohen movie. Still want to check that out. Last Night in Soho, the Edgar Wright movie. Haven't seen that yet. And then probably my biggest one that I really want to see, but I don't want to go to the theater right now, is West Side Story. It's making a lot of top lists, and it probably would have possibly made mine, but oh well. See it later.
Ouch. I had 4. Probably more than that for sure, but these were the 4 that were top of mind towards the end of the year. Nightmare Alley, I didn't get to see. Guillermo del Toro's noir film. And I will ditto Licorice Pizza, Benedetta, and The Tragedy of Macbeth. Kind of feel like those could have made my top 20 had I had the chance to see them. Zach?
I have a longer list, but I'll go through it quick. Licorice Pizza, obviously. Summer of Soul, a documentary I would super like to see. I think I'll love it. The Eternals, I never got to check out, but I definitely want to. West Side Story, Free Guy, obviously. Come on.
Free Guy, obviously.
The French Dispatch, I'm curious about. The Beatles Get Back, but who has the time?
I'm like halfway through that still.
Yeah. Passing, The Lost Daughter. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about.
I saw
Maggie
it.
Gyllenhaal's.
It was good.
Oh, okay. Tragedy of Macbeth. Drive My Car is another one I'm hearing a lot about. I'm curious about that. The Humans, Mass, Titan, Red Rocket, The Card Counter, Zola. The Fable, The Killer Who Doesn't Kill. Have you heard about this? I hear it has the best action scene of the year in it, like a 15-minute scaffolding fight. So I want to check it out. One Shot, which is an action film presented as one single take, and I want to see it as well. Well, Kyle, you'll have to be the judge. Raging Fire and Space Sweepers is like a South Korean space thriller, which I am totally here for. So,
never heard of that one.
Sorry, Space Sweepers. That one looked really interesting to me as well.
Is that a Netflix movie?
It might be, yeah, it's on Netflix.
I think it's like one of those movies that's one of the best on Netflix, but it's not be on anyone's front page. You have to search
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
I also separate my documentaries. I didn't see too many this year. But
I do too.
These are the 4 that I enjoyed this year. Some Kind of Heaven, which is the Village's old people documentary. Val, I enjoyed, about Val Kilmer. Athlete A, which is about the gymnastics scandal, gymnastics doctor scandal. And Summer of Soul was awesome.
Nice. My top 10 documentaries of the year. Number 10 is Persona, about personality tests. Number 9 is Britney versus Spears, about the Free Britney movement. Number 8, Untold: Malice at the Palace, about a basketball incident. Number 7, Val. Number 6, Framing Britney Spears, also about Free Britney. Number 5, Woodstock 99. Surprisingly not about Britney Spears. Number 4, Patrice O'Neal, Killing Is Easy. If you're at all interested in Patrice O'Neal, this is a good one to check out.
Patrice O'Neal,
he's like
the
a
Friday
comedian.
guy?
The comedian.
Oh,
yeah.
the comedian. Okay.
Yeah. He's just a guy that he's really funny. Number 3, 'Twas the Fight Before Christmas. Number 2, Operation Varsity Blues. And my number 1, if I didn't separate out my documentaries, this would be in my top 5 as well. It's The Rescue. It's so good.
Nice. All right, one more batch of movies before we head on out on this episode. This is our biggest disappointments. Now, this isn't necessarily movies that we have to dislike. I mean, you could even like these movies and still kind of be disappointed by it. These aren't the worst movies of the year. We'll be talking those next week during the Hangover episode. These are just movies that we had an expectation that was not met for them for one reason or another. So probably not going to be a movie you didn't know of before you learned about it. Probably a movie that you anticipated and then didn't meet some need. Kyle, did you have any disappointments this year?
I did. Before I get to that, I just realized that Bad Trip never made it onto my 2021 ranked list.
Yeah.
And I think that could have actually made it crack the top 20. So definitely an honorable mention. It's just an oversight on my part. When Zach mentioned, like, oh yeah, I like that movie. And then I was like, wait, I give that 4 stars. How is that not?
If you were to put it on the list, where would it go?
It could fall into the top 50, between 15 and 20.
Okay. So we're not talking a change of the top 10 here.
No, it's not gonna. Yeah, it would bump out, something in Oxygen or Suicide Squad or something like that. But completely missed that one. So even my system's flawed sometimes. I'll admit that. All right, disappointments for this year. First one was In the Heights, the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie. I was expecting just more based on what I had already seen from him, both from Hamilton and some of his other outputs. And I thought this movie was underwhelming, had its moments, but it's not a movie I really have thought about or songs I've sung or something I've wanted to revisit since I saw it the first time around. Fast 9 movie I was looking forward to seeing in the theater. I enjoyed seeing the theater, but did not hit the level of fun and ridiculousness that I was hoping that the previous, last 5 Fast movies have been able to hit. So hopefully the franchise expands from there. French Dispatch has its moments. One of my favorite scenes of the year is in this movie, but it's also a lot of Wes Anderson doing Wes Anderson, and it's a little tiresome after a while. So that's how I feel about that. Black Widow, it's such a average, fine Marvel movie. The action is nothing special. The story is so much more about the Florence Pugh character than it is about the Black Widow herself. It, for a movie that's supposed to be this prequel, the swan song for this beloved character of the MCU, it just kind of was a bit of a thud for me. And then probably my most disappointing movie of the year was Lamb. And your honorable mention Zach made your top 20. maybe for me it was an expectation issue, but I was looking for more, I don't know, nature dread horror, and what I got was family drama. So
Sure. Some that you didn't mention for me as far as biggest disappointments, I shared some of your disappointments were Last Night in Soho from Edgar Wright.
okay.
I didn't like that movie. I hope it plays better for you, Kyle, when you get to see it. I don't think you should not see it, because I do think that there's a good movie probably in there, and I know other people have enjoyed it. So but for me, it's kind of like what makes Edgar Wright interesting to me is his injection of humor, and he just does not attempt that in this movie. And so I lost a little bit of the Edgar Wright flair. House of Gucci, another Ridley Scott movie. Last Duel made my list. This was his other movie that the 83-year-old filmmaker put out this year. And House of Gucci has some. It's not a bad movie. It just, I think I expected too much of it. And then what I got was a super interesting performance from, oh, what's his name? The guy who played Joker in Suicide Squad, Jared Leto.
Oh yeah.
Jared Leto is amazing in House of Gucci, and everything else should have revolved around him. And it doesn't, unfortunately. So a completely watchable movie that I was disappointed by. Black Widows and Eternals I bunched together as Marvel movies that happened, and I won't think about them much moving forward. The French Dispatch, I agree. There's like, it's an anthology movie, and there's one segment in it that's really good, and the other two are just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And the wraparound story is nothing. It's like, yeah, just watch the first segment, and the rest is, you can pass on it. The Green Knight is a good movie that I was disappointed by rather. And Cry Macho. I really liked what's his name, Clint Eastwood's last movie, the one where he's a gardener that transports drugs.
Oh, The Mule.
The Mule. I like The Mule. I think it absolutely fit his age and stuff like that. And Cry Macho, I don't know, it just did nothing for me, and I was looking forward to that one.
Nice. I have 4. The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is a movie I liked, but it was just a little cheesier than I wish. I wish it was a little bit more straight, and it definitely was cheesy.
Cheesy or campy?
Cheesy.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah, I would have been fine with more camp, but it was, I don't know. But I liked it still. It's worth watching. In the Heights, very similar reasons that Kyle gave. Don't Look Up, just because at the very, very first moment of marketing this film, I was like, oh, this could be interesting. And I was incredibly disappointed by just how heavy the satire was. Mm-hmm. And my biggest disappointment was Matrix Resurrection, because I was hopeful for an interesting Matrix sequel, and this one just was not interesting for me. So
I considered putting it on my list of disappointments, but I realized I had such low expectations that I wasn't really disappointed.
Sure. Yeah, I can honestly say I don't think I had high or low expectations. I think Matrix 4 just kind of happened for me, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's not the movie I wanted. I didn't really think through what I wanted, but it's not that. That's for sure.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode 512 of the Cinereelists. Is this the 7th year we've done these lists, Zach? 7 years?
14, right?
Mm-hmm.
2014.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
This is the 8th
We've
time.
done 8 of these.
This is the 8th year we've done a top 20 list at the end of the year. 2 more years, we'll have done it 10 years in a row. So thank you for joining us for this 8th annual iteration of our top 20 films of the year. Don't forget, send us an email with your top 10 to top 20 favorite films of the year. We are currently receiving those emails from listeners and aggregating them into one big old listener preference top 20 list. So the more of you guys participate, the better that list is going to be. Hey guys at cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. You can also find us on YouTube at Cinereelists. Watch the podcast while you listen to it. You could leave us an Apple podcast review. You could find us on any social media network. Well, any of the ones that matter, like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, which I should probably do another one of. And
I can't believe you started and then just
it's not dead. It's sleeping. Yeah, you can find us on any of those social media networks at Cinereelists, or you can find me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shoppin.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Next week, we will be back with our 8th annual Hangover episode, where we will just do a lot of fun lists as fast as we possibly can. One of my favorite episodes of the year. Can't wait. And send in your top 20 to top 10 to top 20s. Thanks, guys. We will see you next week. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.